everybody today, and it's so nice to have the long-time tradition of the Business and Professional Luncheon back here. Again, we look forward to kicking this off and getting it going regularly again. I first met Joan Salwen in 1999 when she moved in next to me about a block from here over on Peachtree Circle. And I know that you all think you're here today because you want to hear from someone amazing. But I'm here to tell you that the best thing about Joan is how amazingly normal she is. And I know all of you who know her will agree. She is so normal that she grew up on a farm in Iowa.
I will tell you about how I almost quoted you in my speech.
Her parents, Don and Sue, very normal. Worship here sometimes on Christmas Eve. We're teachers and coaches. And the very normal strawberry blonde and freckle-faced Joan went to Northwestern and got a very normal education, liberal arts education there. And then at 18, on a perfectly normal group outing to a Cubbies game, she met her husband, Kevin Salwen. That's where the normal ended.
And lived happily ever after.
And then things got kind of weird. So seemingly normal Joan has done extraordinary things, and we're really blessed to hear her story today in this very unique kind of setting. She has a great combination of strategic skills and people skills, and that led her to becoming a senior partner at Accenture. And after 20 years there, Joan finished a couple of tiny little assignments fixing Wells Fargo and Bank of America. She took an even bigger challenge, which is teaching middle school girls. She returned to Agnes Scott, she got a degree in teaching, and she went to work at the Atlanta Girls School. And she was the founding faculty member of the Sarah Blakely Entrepreneur Academy. And during a pivotal transition time there at the girls' school, Joan was asked to become the interim director. And she was great at that, and when she finished that, which was just recently, when they found a new director, she applied and was accepted as a Distinguished Career Fellow at Stanford. So she will begin her extraordinary journey in Palo Alto on January 1st, and we will miss her. Oh yeah, can I mention that she and her family wrote a book and started a movement called The Power of Half, and oh yeah, those two pretty extraordinary kids that she raised, Hannah and Joe. So there's so much more, but I'm going to let Joan tell the stories. Please give her a big First Presbyterian welcome to the never really very normal Joan King Salwen.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sal. Thank you, Tony, and all of First Presbyterian Church. It's my honor to be here today. In preparing my remarks for today, I was compelled to reflect on all this normalcy that Sal mentioned, and 2 careers and more. And doing that reflection did help me see how all of my work has been informed by faith, and that itself was a gift. So thank you. And 'tis the season. 'Tis the season of giving, and so that's very appropriate. Even those of us who like to peek under the tree and think we hear reindeer on the roof know that it is more blessed to give than to receive, and that God loves a cheerful giver. Now, I know that giving is great, but my remarks are about receiving. I love receiving. Kevin, I love receiving. I hope that God loves a cheerful receiver, because that's what I really, really am. In my professional life, 3 gifts I have very cheerfully received could be characterized, using those good Iowa farming analogies, as irrigation, evaporation, and moving closer to the source. But before all that, one of the first gifts, the first, in fact, that I received was the gift of a caring family, one that was grounded in faith. Actually, it was much more than grounded. It was kind of a muddy, messy kind of thing. You know, my parents as you mentioned, were solid Iowa, salt of the earth kind of Methodist types. And they taught Sunday school and served communion, raised 3 children in the church, the whole 9 yards. Despite their best efforts, my parents got a little bit more than traditional Christian values out of their 3 offspring. My older brother was recruited to play basketball in college in Utah. And when he got there, got a knock on his door, and the Mormons, wearing their dark suits and their name tags, also came to recruit him. And he is now a seriously practicing Mormon. He's just a wee bit older than I am, and he has 13 grandchildren. And he has been a bishop in the church. My younger brother, by contrast, came out as a gay man at age 20, which is not really a thing in the Mormon church, in the Methodist church, or Mormon actually. The Methodist church does not ordain practicing homosexuals or marry same-sex couples. So I have remained really pretty steady, especially by comparison, yet I did marry my college sweetheart, who is a Jew from Brooklyn. So I'm the perfect person to be addressing you today about faith. I suspect my parents are a little bit baffled about how all this happened. So the gift of irrigation began to flow right after my graduation from Northwestern. I began a 20-year career at what was first Arthur Andersen and then became Accenture. From my very first day on the job, the firm invested in me. In my first 4 years, I toggled between professional development opportunities at St. Charles, Illinois, and putting those skills into practice on meaningful client works. It was a really intentional, purposeful development plan. This model of drip irrigation enabled my progression from lowly programmer on a state tax system in the state of Washington to application designer for the Board of Elections in New York City to the testing manager of a hugely complex mound of spaghetti at Freddie Mac. Later, I became quite skilled at facilitating difficult decisions with substantial trade-offs. The method paid off. In 1993, I was elected partner just after returning from maternity leave. Did you hear that? Just after returning from maternity leave. It's fabulous. In that year, there were 854 partners globally in Andersen's consulting organization, 854. Fewer than 5% of them were women, which made for very short lines at the global partners meetings at the bathroom. More daunting for me, however, was that exactly 13 of the 854 partners scattered all over the globe were mothers. I had a daughter and an equity stake in the firm, but I had few peers or role models. They had evaporated. I still have a folder of official memos that announce the resignations one by one by one of the women that I believed would be my business partners. Many of these women were superstars of client service, but they were gone. Their loss, in its own way, was also a gift. For one thing, the evaporation of all that talent that I witnessed inspired me to devote the next 22 years to encouraging and enable talent to grow rather than to escape. In addition, the absence of any role models was actually a gift to our marriage. Kevin and I got to work figuring things out our way. We had to look at all the tasks that were needed to run our new household with this baby girl. Not just the everyday stuff, but the emergency stuff too. So like, what was plan B when our baby's caregiver was sick? We made decisions about what we could do, what we felt comfortable hiring other people to do, and what we just decided had to be cut out. Kevin was with the Wall Street Journal at the time, covering the first Bush administration. His days were packed, and a daily deadline loomed every day. So while our kids were small, we agreed that Kevin would do everything in his power to avoid travel. I did everything I could to avoid a social life outside of work hours. So no girls' weekends, no book clubs, no volunteering, so that when I was home, which wasn't always, I could be completely and totally home. Did we drop some balls? Sure. Oh, plenty of them. I once forgot to send Valentines to preschool with Hannah. She was the only kid in the entire preschool who did not have cards to share. I hid in my bedroom and I cried that night. Hannah didn't. She had a whole bag of Valentine hearts and candy. She was fine. It was a crazy, crazy life. As I mentioned, the evaporation of top-level talent inspired me to invest time in encouraging talent to grow. So to nourish connections between individuals and my firm, I invited aspiring consultants into our beautiful landmark home next door to the Kibblers for dinner and conversation. While managing important client relationships, even facilitating a nearly $800 million transaction for Bank of America, I created programs to encourage career growth and the retention of top talent, including a global mentoring program for female executives. All right, let's shift just a little bit. Meanwhile, in the year 2000, a group of 3 visionary women founded Atlanta Girls School to help girls aim for highly productive careers in STEM and other fields. Many professional women in town took notice of this new school and provided support. I was immediately captivated by the promise of Atlanta Girls School. I wrote an annual fund check that very first year and every year after. But more intimately, I became a mentor of an 8th grade student, Jacqueline, cheering her on at soccer games and eating with her in the cafeteria and observing the kind of education she was getting. One day, while I was meeting with a group of networking, talented Accenture women, an epiphany arose. I had helped numerous professional women network, take risks, and reach, but at times I knew that I was too late. Somewhere along the line, maybe in middle school, many of these talented women had turned off their appetite for risk and for self-advocacy. Atlanta Girls School was custom built to equip girls at a really early age to gain self-awareness and practice resiliency. AGS just felt right to me, and I wanted to make a more enduring impact on women than I had at Accenture. So, while I loved my work and the income, I resolved to position myself closer to the source, to go closer. I wanted to become that teacher, you know, the one who challenges girls to question, speak up, and welcome the lessons that come from failure. I was lucky to have succeeded in earning and saving so that I could return to graduate school. I was hired by AGS and became a 42-year-old rookie teacher. I had moved nearer to the source. While at AGS for 12 years, I taught English and entrepreneurship. I was inspired daily by the students' willingness to lean into their discomfort and to own their own learning, as I knew it would form early habits that would change the trajectories of their careers and lives. When the head of school resigned unexpectedly in May 2012, the Board of Trustees asked me to stop teaching and to become the interim head. I hired new leaders of finance and development, and I designed new processes in admissions. During my 2-year tenure, AGS grew to 240 students and was successful, yay, in hiring a world-class head of school. So at this point, please indulge me a digression. The piece I'm going to say has very little to do with my business and professional life, but it is a continuation of the work that I started when I saw the evaporation of vibrant talent in 1993 and the rise and empowerment of future business and technology leaders at Atlanta Girls School. While riding home after a sleepover, our then 14-year-old daughter, Hannah, became outraged about the inequities in our society when she saw a homeless man and a gleaming new Mercedes juxtaposed at a corner near our home. Her questions, her insistent questions about poverty and why, triggered a bold family decision to sell our historic 6,000 square foot home, my dream house, move into one half the size, and use the proceeds to try to make the world better. We set up a donor-advised fund at the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, and we deepened our relationship with our community. I turned on my inner consulting nerd and facilitated our family. Using worksheets and whiteboards on Saturday mornings, we discovered our values and our purpose. I deepened my resolve to help working people increase their own capacity to be fulfilled and achieving at work. We chose to step up our giving locally, and we made a large commitment internationally. Our family then took what had been a very private act, a ritual of meeting with my worksheets around the breakfast table over bagels, and we made it public. Our young son, Joe, was first. He made a video of the experience, which is really hilarious. And then Kevin and Hannah wrote our family memoir. I was really reticent about the public part because, as we all know, people who put themselves into the public eye open themselves up for attack. You know, I had had a 20-year career in business, and I could handle a little criticism, but I had 2 children to think about. And we did get some stern criticism, some of it very nasty and some of it personal, especially about our commitments in Africa, posted on the Today Show site and on Amazon.com and elsewhere. At the same time, though, some kindred spirits, such as my friend Ed Morris here, felt inspired to take their own actions as they learned our story. It is widely reported, though I have no way of knowing whether it's true, that our family's experience inspired Melinda Gates to gather her husband and Warren Buffett to launch the Giving Pledge. On the Charlie Rose Show, she referred to our family as her heroes in philanthropy. Melinda and Bill Gates invited our family to their home, their office, in a room that they referred to as their living room. Well, a living room sounds like a really intimate space to me, so I decided to bring a gift. I brought her a jar of my homemade pepper jelly. My friend Della Wells and I grow the peppers on my roof and in her garden, and it's not for sissies, it's hot. Anyway, based on Melinda's really warm reaction to it, I would venture to guess that few of her neighbors just pop over with warm banana bread or other homemade gifts for her. It seemed to me that the gift of friendship and neighborliness that I extended that day had an impact. Melinda's warm receipt of my gift does remind me of our first trip to Ghana, where the proceeds of the sale of our house had been invested with the Hunger Project to help 20,000 villagers move from poverty to self-reliance. Everything I knew about charity was turned on its head during that trip. As we prepared for it, our family was naturally very eager to gather up things, books, soccer balls, shoes, medicines, whatever we could to help. The Hunger Project specifically instructed us not to bring anything, no gifts. Further, they told us that while we were there, if our chair were to break during some kind of village gathering, that we were to allow a villager to help us fix it or to bring us another chair. That's because the people in these villages were working to identify and develop their own assets and to partner effectively with their local governments to obtain the resources they really needed: education, healthcare, electricity, etc. Our doing things for them, however insignificant, were an insult to their battle for self-reliance. It is no wonder that we want to be givers. Giving feels good and it's a virtuous act. I can tell you that it was only after I was able to see myself as a receiver that I was able to give differently. Our daughter, Hannah, became inspired to make a difference when she saw a man begging for food near our home. But really, in the words of a, believe it or not, Mormon prophet, are we not all beggars? Do we not all depend on the one, our God, for all of our substance, for our food and our clothing, and for gold and for silver and for all the riches of every kind that we have? Because everything comes from God, whatever we give really isn't giving. It's re-gifting. Taking a gift that was given to us, from one person and giving it as a gift to someone else. Lots of people do this. Probably no one in the room, but lots of people do this. There's actually now even a national holiday. Can you believe this? It's the third Thursday in December. It's called National Regifting Day. Most of the time, people regift something they don't want. Well, let's reframe that. What I'd like to suggest here is that regifting is an expression of gratitude from a cheerful receiver. This was given to me, and I fully appreciate it. So much so that I do not feel that I should need all of it. Enough is as good as a feast. All sorts of riches were given to me by my Father, and everyone is a child of my Father, which makes regifting very practical. My own sense of importance about volunteering, serving, and giving is always kept in check by thinking of myself as needy and receiving. The needy men and women that we met in Ghana completely upended the, if you teach a man to fish, he will fish for a lifetime, hoo-ha. I learned that in many cases, no one needs to teach that man to fish. He already knows how. In fact, he could teach all of us a thing or two about sustainable fishing in the waters that he navigates every day. It could be that he is not fishing because the river is polluted, or that he is not of the right tribe to gain access to the pond. Importantly, he might even be a she. As a girls' school educator, I was sure when we went to Africa that building schools, or at least paying the school fees for girls, was a way that I was called to help. Rather, I learned that a primary reason that a girl in Ghana or neighboring nations do not go to school is because the person who controls her time doesn't value it for her. Fees and proximity to schools are not often the issue. So we can teach a man to fish or we can pay school fees, but unless we move right back down to the source, we may not be doing the good we need to do. Communities who confront their own barriers at the source and resolve as a unit to overcome them are very likely to bring about the change that will endure. The community that our family funded, where we funded trainers and facilitators who helped lift them and find their own best selves, has nearly ended its own poverty and hunger. It will soon be self-reliant. So, to wrap up, my cheerful receipt of 3 gifts defines my professional life. Irrigation nurtured my skill sets, providing for steady growth. Evaporation challenged me to explore the causes of energy escape and the characteristics of environments that keep energy moving. Repositioning nearer to the source enabled me to be part of solutions. I am eternally grateful for these and all gifts, and for the one from whom all blessings flow. In this season of giving, I urge you, too, to look at ways that you could regift the riches that you have of every kind. Thank you.
Take that, hang on, not on. Thank you. Joan, I hope you hear that applause as our gratitude for the gift you've just given to all of us. We're going to honor everyone's time today and try to stay within a 1-hour period, but we have time for just a few questions, and Joan will answer them if anyone has them. I can run a microphone to you. Oh, Brad Kidler has a question.
Who's in charge, Melinda or Bill Gates?
I don't know the answer to that.
Any others?
Can you do that enough? Yeah, tell us about what you'll be doing in your next gig at Stanford.
Okay, great. I'm so excited to get started in January. Kevin and I are both going to Stanford, as is our dog Charlie. where we'll be part of a program with 25 other adults who are leaders of various kinds from a lot of different walks of life. And together we're going to explore a number of social problems and expand into ways that those problems could be solved. So part of the program is working as a cohort, but we also get to audit any class at the university that we want to. And it's kind of like TED or Evening at Emory or something. There are no grades. So we can just go and learn. So I'm pretty excited about that. Great. Everyone that the Hunger Project hires is a local native-speaking person. There are no Westerners who come on in with any kind of skill set or technologies to help. It's all very indigenous and slow. So our dollars actually go to pay salaries for facilitators, trainers who train others, people who are skilled in conducting early workshops that can allow villagers to form committees and to begin the work of prioritizing the needs they have in the community. There are some things that we also provide, like matching gifts or challenge grants, so that the village can go to a local government and say, we have a sponsor who will pay $3,000 of this if you pay the other $3,000. So some things like that.
Any others? Questions?
Up front. So tell us, fast forward to today, how has the experience impacted or continues to impact your children?
It's a great question. Our family unity that came out of my facilitation is pretty remarkable. Yeah. No, the fact that there are just so many things. The fact that Hannah, who was a kind of prickly teenager, wrote a book with her dad, had enormous impact on their ability to hear each other and respect each other. And this whole process, Mark, allowed us to be seriously dumb. Like we would explore some issue together, and Joe would say, well, why does that happen? And we could honestly say, I don't know. Let's find out together. What do you think? And anyway, so that experience continues to, I think, play out just in our regular family interactions. We kind of leveled the playing field. We became kind of a family democracy, which is really strange, in our nation. But we've traveled to Ghana several times more as a family, and every year we go to New York and meet with other donors and investors, and we're updated on the progress of the work. So it's something we continue to share.
That's great.
Thanks.
I'm curious about Americanizing, when we go into another country and think we're helping in a way that we might think is helping. And this is what you're talking about, that we're really trying to evaluate a way that makes them better at who they are.
Right.
But anytime that you go in and you make a change to an ecosystem, you have to continue monitoring and to make sure that it's not you putting yourself on that community. So how do you do that? For instance, in your situation in Ghana, how do you know that when you're giving, you're truly giving to the community as it is at its best, versus what you think as an American it's supposed to be?
I really appreciate your question about how do we know that we're not messing things up when we are trying to do good. And I think the answer is we don't totally always know at the time or later, because unintended consequences can pop up at any time in a community's evolution, right? So one of the things that we like about the organization we're working with is their commitment to monitoring and evaluation. And just like everything else it does, it's not people from Yale coming and measuring and whatever. It's from the community itself. And so they set their own goals, and they interview and survey and monitor really in their own way. And That may not be best, but it feels kind of authentic and in alignment with the way the whole organization works.
You'll be the last one.
Okay. Did you have an aha moment when you were looking at the ways you wanted to use your funds? It was like, oh yes, this is it. It's Donna. It's with this. Or did you sort of roll over several different opportunities, or how?
I really wanted to cede a lot of that responsibility to the kids, to be honest. They were giving up their house just like I was. They were giving up bedrooms with chandeliers and an elevator and all sorts of things. So they had a big stake in it. So I decided I wasn't going to stake out my own personal preference. But I will say, when we met with, it was fun. We had a day where we met with several of these organizations, and many of them kind of seemed similar. You know, we have good seeds, we have good technology, you know, we have figured out how to, you know, nurture and nourish this nitrogen-poor soil and all this kind of stuff. It all felt the same. Again, with this same organization, with the Hunger Project, Joan Holmes said, when we first went into the villages in Africa, what we found was, and in that tiny little second, I already knew what she was going to say. She was going to say, we found people who were good-hearted, but who needed some seeds and some whatever, and she didn't say that. She said, we found people who were resourceful and resilient and who were ready to be mobilized. And you know, just that different take on the human spirit definitely won me over. And fortunately, the other three voted for it too.
That's a perfect note on which to end. The tradition at this event, Business and Professional Luncheon, is for the speaker to elect to donate the honorarium for this to another organization, and Joan has elected for this honorarium provided generously by Carter to go to the Hunger Project.
Oh.
So I'm giving you this check, but she's not keeping this check.
No. Thank you very much. Thank you all.